start with today's topics. First topic would include blood sample showing long COVID symptoms in people. So, what is this long COVID? We would be understanding how it is harming the health of the people. We will be also getting to know directly directly in the examination. It can be asked that what is long COVID and what are its symptoms and how it can be dangerous for the people. Write in suppose say 150 words. Second topic can be regarding why the reforms of the multilateral banks are required. You must know that there are multilateral banks, and those were created after like 1945 of the World War. Then after the multilateral banks were created, but there have been requirement of reforms. So with reforms, what development banks actually can play a role? So we would be also understanding about it. Third one is the 4-day work week in United States of America. What are its benefits, why it is being brought into, and what will be the challenges. We would be understanding it. Number four, what is the nature-based administration? So we would be also trying to learn about it. First one, blood bank study reveals true incidence of long COVID. The study that was conducted looked for the presence of anti-nucleocapsid anti-N antibodies, which indicates that past natural infections COVID-19 vaccines do not elicit the antibody, thus, thus distinguishing natural infection from COVID-19 vaccination. So, what is long COVID? Some people have been infected with the virus that causes corona. They can experience long-term effects from this particular infection, and that is known as the long COVID or post-COVID conditions. So if you are asked actually questions in the manner like what is long COVID or what is post-COVID condition or PCC, then you can write that the people who have been infected with the virus that has post-COVID-19 can have long-term effects from this particular infection. So long COVID is broadly defined as those signs, symptoms, and conditions that continue or develop after acute COVID-19 infection. People call long COVID symptoms by many names, including post-COVID conditions called PCC, long haul COVID, post-acute COVID-19, long-term effects of the COVID, chronic COVID. The term post-COVID sequelae is of SARS-CoV-2 infection, that is PASC. You must understand that SARS is severe acute respiratory syndrome, and that actually has the coronavirus in its family. So long COVID is a real illness, and it can result in chronic conditions that require comprehensive care. Long COVID can include a wide range of ongoing health problems. These conditions can last for weeks, months, or years. Long COVID occurs more often in people who had severe COVID-19 illness, but anyone who has been infected with the virus that causes COVID-19 can also experience it. So the possibilities is more in those people who were earlier infected with the severe COVID-19 illness. People who are not vaccinated against COVID-19 and become infected may also have a higher risk of developing long COVID compared to the people who have been vaccinated. People can be reinfected with severe acute respiratory syndrome, coronavirus 2, the virus that causes COVID-19, multiple times. So each time a person is infected or reinfected with SARS-CoV-2, they have a risk of developing the long COVID. So while most people with long COVID have evidence of infection or corona illness, in some cases, a person with long COVID may not have tested positive for the virus or known that they were infected. So, why the long COVID is a problem, you must have understood. Because it also creates a chronic kind of disease challenge. That's why it is affecting lungs of the people. And because of that, the associated disease like TB, etc., is also coming into picture. Because of the vaccination complications and the coronavirus complications and the medicines, those were taken that time of the infection, that is also causing a burden on our blood pressure regular speeds. So whatever the blood pressure, regular speeds, those are now getting some sort of, differentiation into that. And that is also causing heart level complications. So that is also creating troubles. So the youths, those are getting, heart diseases in a regular fashion nowadays, or it has become frequent. This particular study is also being, attached to that. Some studies are talking that there is a direct correlation between corona and the heart diseases that people are right now having. Although no particular confirmation has been provided by any single study, but these are mere speculations. So these are the long COVID phenomena. What can be its economic challenges? Economic challenges can be number one, that the non-communicable diseases are on the rise. So whenever you are writing about the non-communicable diseases, you can write that more than 50% of the people who are dying right now are because of NCDs, non-communicable diseases. Second thing, you can also write that non-communicable diseases are raising their heads, and corona actually is giving a contribution to that aspect. Third, also you can say that the non-communicable diseases are on the rise because of the lifestyle factor. Those are associated with the life phenomena of the people. Long corona or long COVID actually is also complicating the life stories because the productivity level of the people are also coming down because of the complications that they have daily wise or weekly wise. So their chances to earn actually is also reducing and work there. So these are the effects how a long COVID is threatening the economic potential, the talent supply, and the contributions that the economies actually get from health or other related better living of the people. And second topic is regarding multilateral development banks, why the reforms in those are required. So first of all, we would understand what are the multilateral development banks. So multilateral development banks are those banks which cater to the need of multiple countries. And what are those needs? Those needs can be regarding developmental finance or helping people actually, helping the countries to come out of poverty, providing them some sort of policy directions, providing, necessary help in the time of any crisis, especially debt crisis. So these are the multilateral development banks. Multilateral development banks after World War II were created to cater to the requirements of the countries because that time countries were actually after World War were severely lacking in the developmental finance. The destruction that World War II at that time brought caused actually lot of miseries to the people. A number of people or number of sections in the society were in the poor category. So to lift them out of poverty, to provide the necessary finance so these countries can again create the infrastructure that was destructed because of the Second World War, multilateral development banks were created. The examples of these banks include IMF, that is, and World Bank, even Asian development banks and the new development bank. The name of it actually, like earlier, it used to be BRICS Bank, but new development bank, ADB Bank are all, those banks which are catering to the finances of multiple countries. So World Bank, IMF, etc. are required to be reformed. Why this question? Because number one, the amount of administration or the capacity that was given to these countries after World War II, the administration structure has not changed. The administration structure is itself in the favor of Western countries. Those Western countries used to decide who will get finance and on what terms, and still actually consequently, those structures are still there. Lot of developing countries have either become developed or lot of least developing countries in the world have also become in the developing category. So their economic potential has increased, but their say in the administration has not increased as per their or in comparison to the development that they have received. Number two, the quota. Quota is also a challenge. Why quota is challenge? Because the manner in which your quota is fixed in the IMF or World Bank, you can get assistance or you can get finances regarding that quota only or in the multiples of that quota. So till the time there are necessary reforms, those are brought in the quota system of these multilateral development banks. Neither these countries actually can get more finance, nor can have more say in the day-to-day administration of these development banks. Number third issue, why the reforms are required? Because these banks are not taking care of the local needs or local challenges when they are providing development finance or debt finance to some countries. When we talk about the latest episode, when IMF provided actually help to deal with the crisis in Pakistan, several steps were taken which actually confirmed that IMF does not care or care very less about what the domestic political situation or the domestic social condition or the different economic condition of that territory is. So till the time only one fit size approach is for everyone, you cannot actually have a system that works. So IMF and World Bank, etc., have to improve the functions and the manner in which they provide the debt relief to the countries. Number fourth, can why the reforms are required? Because when they were created in the 1940s or 1950s, that time they used to provide finance as compared to the GDP levels. So suppose they used to provide 2% of the finance as compared to the GDP level of those countries. Still, the finance in the value term has remained the same, but in the quantitative terms, as compared to the GDP, is lesser. So GDPs of these countries have grown much, but the amount of debt that used to be made available or amount of development finance that these multilateral banks used to provide has stayed in the same category. So it has become even half of the amount of funds that they used to provide at the time as compared to the GDP. So that is also one of the reforms required. What is being done? So we will understand what is being done. First of all, the latest fiasco is like, or latest episode of why the reforms are required. India actually, talked about it in G20 communique, or all countries agreed that multilateral development banks administrative and day-to-day functioning and quota-related reforms are need of the hour. Second, IMF actually before some 2 to 3 years increased the quota of developing countries, although it was not by that much, but yes, it did try to increase the quota system of these countries. Third is because of they are situated in the United States of America, and USA is the most uh, contributor to the finance needs of these countries. The US actually has been also trying to advocate and is trying to build some pressure, but that is still in a work in progress. What are the limitations? So the limitations for the Multilateral Development Bank, reforms is number one, all the countries are not on the same table. There is always a tussle between developed and developing countries. A developed world would never want its policies and its, capacities of the decision making to reduce. It would always desire that, the control that these developed countries has on the multilateral development bank always remain. Because through these multilateral development banks, they also, always fulfill their strategic objectives. To which countries the development finance has to be given, in what capacity has to be given, what are the policy changes that those need to be affected, are somehow indirectly affected by the developed countries. So they would never want to bring all those, reforms. So that is one of the challenge. Another challenge is the domestic political system that is also causing some sort of, economic downfall. As we know, Pakistan's economic challenges or Sri Lanka's economic challenges or multiple countries in Africa and Middle East were because of the domestic civil strife and the political compulsions. So the associated debt relief, those were asked by these countries, actually, made them just like a follower of the IMF policies rather than being on a stronger economic front and then after talking about the reforms. So that is also one of the limitations that countries' own political system are also causing the IMF actually, to IMF or the World Bank, to interfere. And then these policies with which the earlier policies were in the place, those are going on the same task. So that is the another effect. Now we come to the new emergence of economic powers, technological advances, and alternate financial platforms also call for the recalibration. We can also write that the climate related issues are also raising their heads, and climate related issues are raising their heads. That's why we require the multilateral development banks to further get reformed. Because climate related finance is one actually which is not only affecting the developing or least developing countries, but also the developed countries, and the developed countries' commitment to provide finances is also lacking. That's why we require some structures. So the reforms are definitely required. Then comes 4-day working week trend in America. Why it is increasing? Number one, time and again we have been hearing about the mental stress of the people. Time and again we have been learning about getting to know the familiar disputes. People are not able to balance the work and life, personal life also. So these are the challenges that is causing a multiple stress to the people. Also, the technology has enabled people to work from home and work from anywhere. So whenever a person at the comfort of his home can work rather than going to the office sphere, it does mean that at least some sort of comfort would be for him. So the physical and healthy needs of the people are also one of the factor why the unions are talking about reducing the work from 5-day week to 4-day week. Another major phenomena why this demand is because of the efficiency levels, those are attached when the 100% work is now being finished in the 80% of time. So those people who want a 4-day week, they would be rather, better invested, and they would be working hard as compared to those people who want a 5 or 6-day week phenomena. When there was in America, there was a time actually then when people used to work for 100 hours a week. Then unions, talked about and tried to make it up to 40 weeks, and they got it decreased also. So a 5-day working trend actually was started. Now it is being talked about as a 4-day working trend. And some benefits are also being seen in the sense that people's, health is also being improving because when they have a 4-day week, they can, whatever the day extra that they are getting, they can invest in the family affairs. They can go on a trip. They can actually look after the educational or academic needs of their children's. So and they can better able to manage whatever their other circumstances or conditions are. Even for climate also it is necessary because people who are going less for 1 day a week, then the fuel that is spent actually on transportation will be also lesser. So the amount of emissions those are being ejected by the vehicular emissions will also reduce because the people will not be using transport if there is a 1 day less to work. So, but there will be other challenges also. And what is the challenges? So the challenges are in the form that number one, those people who are who are having a 5-day week, once they have a 4-day week, then the companies actually will have more burden, more work to be finished in those four days. So there can be more pressure on the people because they have now to complete a 5-day work into 4 days. Number one. Number two, there can be some sort of downgrade in the pay structures if these people actually go for four. Why the threat? Because then companies would be thinking that why to invest resources for a 5-day week rather than investing it for on a 4-day week only. So the pay structure of the people also can get lower. Number third, the lethargy in the people also can also develop. That today they are talking about 4-day week, tomorrow it may happen that they would be talking about say 3-day week only. So that can also come. So these kind of arbitrage actually can also make it very difficult for implementing the 4 or 3-day week period, etc. Then another topic is just like you talk about, a long COVID. So COVID ke baad, the arthritis and somewhere around 200 diseases are also raising their head. So the specialists are saying that long COVID has caused more than 200 diseases. Long COVID actually has lethargy, mental or physical exercises. Those are being having the problem of lesser energy. Any kind of older cough period actually that they used to earlier have, the kind of heart problems, the kind of lung issues, etc. TB is also raging head because of this kind of challenge. So that is also happening because of the COVID and the close to 200 diseases, those are rearing their heads. Come fourth one, nature-based administration. So I tell you why this is important. Because when you talk about the animal, And when you talk about the humans, one most important thing among humans is ability to think, ability to feel the pain of others. So the emotional intelligence, whatever we talk about, emotional well-being, and even the I mean, talking about justice, talking about equalities, bringing about equity, etc., can all be done by the humans because they have the inherent capacity to not only think but do these tasks, while the other animal sphere cannot do so. So when we used to talk about what is the nature-based administration, so a nature-based administration could have been number one where people are fighting with each other without any kind of regulated system. People are also, making sure that somebody is attacking someone's property and there is no right for them, to get improved or seek justice from any particular institution. Then comes people may not have, the manner in which or the etiquettes, those can be helpful for them to come to a rule-based channel. But yes, nature-based administration was also in the sense that the gap between the rich and the poor was lower because nature provided everyone with its own, setup and resources. So the kind of inequalities those are present today were not part of the nature earlier. Number two, nature actually provided because that when there is an imbalance between what the resources are and what the actual needs are, those different needs can be then fulfilled automatically by nature. But here in an atmosphere when the Earth's carrying capacity itself is decreasing, the carrying capacity of the Earth, the resources those are required for 365 days are now being consumed in a lesser period of time. That policy is also, sorry, that particular carrying capacity is also decreasing. So somewhere, the human animal conflict also, those are being, experienced somewhere, are also raising their head. So this is how the nature-based administration and human-based administration or the kind of systems are, there is a difference among these.
For more such videos, you can like the button and subscribe the channel. Thank you.